understanding how your brain works might just change your life. Hey guys, I'm Beck, and in this video I want to talk to you about some of the things that I've learned about the brain that have greatly helped me with my mental health over the years. Before I get started, I do want to caveat that I am not a neuroscientist or a doctor of any way, shape, or form. So, information that I'm going to share with you is based on things that I've read in books, podcasts that I've listened to, or just general research that I've done. You might also be thinking that learning about the brain and neuroscience is not a typical trajectory for somebody who wants to help themselves with their mental health. But my hope is that by sharing this information with you, that you will be just as inspired as I was when I first learned it, to know that you can change the ways that your brain works, and that power is in your hands. And with that power, you can change your life. Now, there are two things that I want to talk about. The first one is about neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is this idea that your brain is malleable in parts. So things that we think and feel and do, we do have the power to change them. And this was particularly helpful for me because there did come a point where I was feeling quite tired and frustrated that I wasn't able to change the thoughts and the behaviours, even if I knew that they were unhelpful. I'd heard the phrase that neurons that fire together wire together, and so I became convinced, especially once I reached adulthood, that this was just who I am. That I have made these neurons in my head fire together and wire together so many times that it was hard coded, that I was hard coded to have the anxiety that I had and to have the worries that I did and to conduct the unhelpful behaviors that I was doing. But when I learned about neuroplasticity, and I remember exactly where I was when I learned this term because I knew it was going to change my life. And when I learned about it and I realized that we do have the power to change our brains, I was in awe. And to give you a bit of context around this, so if you've ever learned anything about the brain, you've probably heard of neurons. Now, neurons are cells that carry information throughout our bodies using electrical and chemical signals. And inside our brain, depending on which research you read, there is about 128 billion of these neurons inside our brains. And they form networks of over 500 trillion neuron to neuron connections. And all day long, they're sending and receiving information. But in response to certain stimuli, these neurons can reorganize themselves. They can change their function, their structure, their connections. In some parts of the brain, neurons can die, and in some parts of the brain, neurons can be born. And the reality is that we can, by introducing new stimuli into our lives, we can prune away neuron to neuron connections that are weakened and less used, and we can create new neuron to neuron connections. And this is neuroplasticity, and it's continuously happening throughout our lives from the minute that we're born. And like I said, this filled me with so much hope that we don't always need to be limited to our beliefs and our thoughts and our actions. And that over time, we can introduce new enriching experiences into our lives that will help us strengthen and develop new connections and ultimately prune away the weakened, less used ones. So how do we do this? As I said, it's by introducing new things into your life, whether that's learning something new, so learning an instrument or a new language or anything that you want to learn, whether that's through creativity or new experiences. And they don't have to be crazy new experiences like jumping on a plane and traveling the world. It can simply be just taking yourself on a different walk every day or going to grab a coffee at a different coffee shop in the morning. These things will introduce new connections into your brain, neurons that will have to fire in different ways to accept these new experiences. And simultaneously, the connections that you then stop using, they will prune away. they 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 will change, and your brain will change. And with patience, that change will happen, and you can change your life. Now, the second concept is this idea that our brains are prediction machines. So our brains use prediction and probability to make best guesses on almost everything that we do. So using very ambiguous sense data that comes from our ears and our eyes in the form of light waves and chemicals, and other similarly ambiguous information from our internal organs and other bodily functions, with combination of our past experiences, our brains make predictions that essentially construct our day-to-day experiences and our day-to-day realities. Now, it's fascinating because sometimes your brain can get this right and sometimes your brain can get this wrong. So an example that I've heard about how the brain predicts is if you're thirsty and you go and get a glass of water, when you finished that glass of water, you feel less thirsty, right? But the reality is that it takes about 20 minutes for that water to reach your bloodstream and for you to chemically be less thirsty. But it's based on that action that you took, that your brain has predicted that you've had the water and therefore you will feel less thirsty and therefore you are less thirsty. And on the flip side, where your brain might get it wrong, have you ever thought that you've heard your phone ringing when it's not, or that your watch has vibrated and it didn't? And interestingly is that whether your brain gets it right or wrong, that is your reality. But the great thing about that is then there's a knowing in there that not everything that you think, not everything that you feel, not everything that you see is necessarily real. And so it opens the question that actually maybe we can challenge our beliefs. Maybe we can challenge the things that we see and think and feel out in the world, particularly the stuff that causes us harm. Even those deeply held beliefs that we have about ourselves and the world, we can challenge them. And it's not easy. I will caveat that it's not easy, but introducing anything new into your life that can have a lasting impact, it's going to be uncomfortable. But if we go back to the idea of introducing these new enriching changes into your life with learning something new or creativity or the new experiences, put in the reps to do these things. And with time and patience and practice, anything that feels taxing today can feel effortless tomorrow. And whilst we cannot change the past, and obviously the brain is predicting partially based on our past experiences, we can change our future. We can change what we're doing today. So we can change what we do today and change our predicting brains for tomorrow. Now, nothing in life that's worth having comes easy, but if you embrace this responsibility for yourself, then the possibilities for you in your life are endless. And that's exciting. I find that really, really exciting. So lean into these new things, lean into learning something new and doing the thing that feels scary, and just do it, because doing that is how you form new connections. Doing that is how you impact your brain. You use that concept of neuroplasticity to physically change your brain, and you change your predicting brain at the same time. And it's just exciting to know that you have so much more control over your actions and your beliefs than maybe you ever thought was possible. So these are the two things that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that it's given you some kind of inspiration and hope that you can change your brain and you can change your life. So I encourage you, please go out there. That thing that you've been putting off to learn, Go do it, go learn it, go lean into it. The new experiences, take it slow, take a different route for a walk, go and grab a coffee somewhere else, but lean into it, and I promise that over time you will begin to change your brain and you will begin to change your life. Thanks so much for listening.